So with the Canadian Grand Prix wrapped up, most teams and drivers left that exciting race happy or optimistic. All but one. Alpine F1 team and Esteban Ocon. Time after time again, they show to us just how unlikable they are as a team and driver, and the Canadian Grand Prix, I feel, was one of the biggest examples of this. The team heading into the weekend was already surrounded by controversy, and when they left the weekend, there was even more of it. And I gotta say, at first, it was spicy. Now, it's just embarrassing. I gotta say though, if I was part of Alpine's 10 fans, I would sure as hell be losing my mind. But thankfully I'm a Ferrari fan, and at least our incompetence is funny. So, enough talking, and let's get into the drama around Alpine F1 and Esteban Ocon and why nothing will ever change with them.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past. 30 years ago,
Michael Schumacher won his first ever title with Benetton, which we now know as Alpine. If you know anything about F1, then you know that the methods in which Michael won this title weren't exactly clean.
Schumacher's lost time, Hill goes by. Oh, out goes.
This was a massive controversy, and to this day it is still discussed if the crash was on purpose or if Michael somehow didn't see him in his mirrors and the crash was purely accidental. Years later, now branded as Renault, we enter Fernando Alonso and his two teammates Giancarlo Fisichella and Jarno Trulli. Both teammates were subject to controversy not because they did something or Fernando did something, but because the team staff subject them to something I would label as mental torture. They were basically filler drivers while everything the team worked for and earned went to Alonso, and to be honest, I don't really blame him considering the amazing driver he was, but still, not the best team look. A couple years later again, still branded as Renault, we have the infamous Crashgate where, again, Alonso's teammate, this time Nelson Piquet Jr., was ordered to crash by Renault in order to make Alonso win the race through good luck. If you want an even more in-depth video on this, I say look at the 5,000 videos there are on it, as I doubt I could add anything to the story that hasn't already been said. Years later, now branded as Lotus, they wanted good drivers to lead them, so they hired Romain Grosjean. They wanted good drivers to lead them, so they hired Kimi Räikkönen, and they had a midfield car at best exiting 2011, so they boldly gave Kimi a clause in 2012 where he gets $50,000 for every 1 point he scores in his 2-year contract. So how many did he get? He almost bankrupted them. In 2018, again as Renault, they had a beef with Red Bull over Daniel Ricciardo and engines, but let's be real, most of it was really just Mr. Ego versus Mr. Ego, so moving on. We move into the present now as Alpine, and by the way, I only highlighted the surface level controversies. I can easily make a whole video discussing every single incompetency with the team since the 80s, but it'd be too depressing and annoying, so moving into this year. The beginning of the year was January 1st. Anyways, going into Bahrain, there were already rumors of the car being slow and potentially the worst, but they were rumors and surely they wouldn't be that bad. It was bad. Saudi, Melbourne, Suzuka, it seems like everywhere, they were nowhere. But our first big controversy was in Suzuka, where Pierre Gasly forgot how eyes worked and ran into the side of Ocon's car. This gave him substantial damage and ruined any hopes for his race, if there was any to begin with. Miami would be better, however, because they would finally score their first points, and in Monaco, they did it again, with no other big story such as a crash that determines the fate of a driver's employment, right guys? Oh, yeah, this is without a doubt, barring anything worse, controversy of the season, since it's quite literally got Esteban fired with reports he'd be replaced starting in Canada. Now, even though the crash did cost the team maybe double points, it's not like he killed Pierre, which is what the team would want you to believe, and this wasn't helped by the fact that what's probably going to be Ocon's replacement, Jack Doohan, would replace him for FP1. Not that it would matter though, since the session was washed out, but still, it's like that one crash gave Alpine every reason to just treat Esteban like an unwanted child, and it's just overall very unprofessional as a team. But somehow, things got worse as the race came. Sunday arrived, and we all know how great the race was, and we all left the race with this feeling of joy for the season. Except if you're an Alpine fan. For those who don't know, with just 2 laps to go, Alpine gave the brilliant team order to Esteban, who was ahead of Pierre at the time, to give up his position of 9th, so Gasly can hunt down Ricciardo for P8. Now typically, this call means that if the driver you let by doesn't overtake the driver ahead, he'll have to give up his place in an act of sportsmanship. However, Alpine and their history of good team orders told Esteban that he will not go back to his position if Gasly failed, and with the race only having 2 laps to go, Pierre obviously failed, and through no merit, Gasly finished ahead of Ocon. This type of call by Alpine is obviously very strange, and I would say unprofessional because they did a very unsportsmanlike action, and sure, Ocon isn't racing for them next year, but it's no excuse since this can really ruin their reputation in the F1 world. And what happened on the radio afterwards also highlights the problems with Ocon as well. Now, I know he owes Alpine no favors, but by being such a dick on the radio after the race is the exact reason why Alpine feel the way they do about Ocon. So now Alpine left Canada with their 10 fans reduced to 8 and everyone else thinking even lower of them than they had previously. Pretty good for their standards. But in all seriousness, where do they go from here? How on earth can they recover from this catastrophic fuck up? Well, I don't think they can. They have locked themselves into being this team and driver full of controversy, and while they've had success before, chances are that in the case of Alpine, they won't have another generational driver that'll want to go to them, and even if they develop one, they'll probably go somewhere else for their own sanity, and while normally that's a dick move, it's Alpine, so is it really that bad? And Esteban will probably never be taken by another team considering his past history of being a prick. All Alpine can do now is to hold firm and go all in on Pierre, since with Ocon leaving, they now only have one driver who can trust them. And all Ocon can do now is to just be nice and hope another team will overlook his behavior and hire him. Also, something that should be mentioned is that Bruno Famin is a clown. Say what you want about Otmar, but at least he knows how to run a team. Ever since Famin took over, it's like there's a new controversy with the team every single week. And it's not even controversy about a driver's actions or something, it's just glorified gossip and immature behavior. And I like to stay as a really simple and surface level commentator on F1 things, but I have to break this and give what I truly think of Alpine and its drivers. Alpine suck. Like, suck massive ass. We know they are incompetent, but to me, they're so incompetent that it just pisses me off. It can be so hard to just be respectful to your drivers. And another thing, the Canada radio exchange between Ocon and his engineer shows in full force the problems with the team and Ocon. The team was so condescending and passive aggressive with Ocon, and Ocon didn't even do himself any favors by doing the exact same thing. And let's not forget Ocon's ability to be as annoying and unlikable as possible with stupid moves that make no sense, and when there is a crash, even if he didn't crash into someone, the crash still could have been completely avoided had he just used his brain and back out and think of a move elsewhere. Like, what are we here? A professional Formula 1 team? Or some gossip group where no one likes each other and just wants to ruin each other? I just think that a team like Alpine and a driver like Ocon does not deserve a place in the Formula 1 grid if they're going to behave this immature and childish. Their spot would be better taken by a team with vision and competence like Andretti, and a driver who knows how to behave and get angry without being a prick like Porsche. And I know I made fun of Alpine's fan base by saying there's only 10 of them, but for real, the fans need to speak up about this incompetence, because the only ones who do are just fans of the drivers, not the team. And I think if Alpine fans collectively voiced their anger of the team, that maybe, just maybe, they'll change in an effort to gain their support again. But who knows? This is Alpine we were talking about. Enough said. Alpine F1 and Esteban Ocon have a lot of work to do. They need to rid the scars of past controversies and move forward instead of repeating the same mistake. They need to put themselves back in the front of the grid instead of going backwards every year. They need to have good race plans and not do something so outlandishly stupid. And they need to stop acting like children and start acting like a professional Formula 1 team and driver again. easier said than done. And Ocon specifically needs to calm down. Yes, he isn't being done any favors by Alpine, but he dug himself in that hole through his passive aggressiveness and his questionable racing. Anyways, I know this was more of a negative video, but someone had to say it and list off not only their recent failures, but their past failures and tell them that if they don't change now, they'll never change again until they inevitably collapse on themselves and ruin everyone's job at the team. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you believe to be the issue with Alpine and if you think they need to change anything. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe and have a great day.
Good weather for the duck.